Good morning, and I thought, here we go, another Lunchtime Electronics series, and then I thought, hold on a minute, we're just building these kits up, and I don't know if people know how to identify the components. So I thought to myself, right, we have several of these lovely little flashing light kits, and I thought, let's go through identifying the bits and what they look like, because although you can get some idea from the circuit board, it doesn't really tell you much about any of the components. So I thought, let's move that to the side. And here's a kit that's just come straight out of the bag, and it looks identical to the one that's working. Now, I know what I'm looking at when I see a pile of bits like that, but I don't expect everybody else does. And it's just, how do you sort things out and know where things go on the board? And rather than just boom, 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 solder it away and all that, I thought I'd spend some time here and go through it. So the first thing we do is we'll separate the PCB, the printed circuit board, from the rest of the kit, because that's our base, that's our building block, and everything has to go onto there. Then we'll take out this, which looks like a pair of screw terminals, and in fact that's exactly what it is, and so we know what that is. So we're left with a few more bits. Now we've got on the board, it's marked R1, R2, R3, R4. How do we know what R1 or R2 or R3 or R4 is? The clue is in the numbering scheme. R is universal for resistor. Now, on any schematic, you'll probably find it marked as, R, whether it be in English or German or Italian or French or any other language, really. I don't know that it's marked as much else on any other circuit diagram. I must check up some of the Russian ones. Somebody else could probably tell me that. Now, you can do this the easy way, and you can say, right, well, there are 4 R's, so what have we got 4 of? And it's those. But say there were only 2. How would you identify a resistor from this little motley collection of components? And the easiest way is you're looking for a tube with multicoloured bands on it. Now, not all resistors look like this, but in all the kits that I think I've built up in this Lunchtime Electronics series, they have all been of this type. And if you learn the colour code, you're pretty much there in the basics of electronics. They number 0 to 9, and they start with black being 0, going through to white being 9. White being 9, I think. Yes, white being 9. And let's see, I'm trying to confuse myself now. I've lost the thread of where I was going. So yes, you could either use a multimeter, and we could turn this round and it would involve let's see, we've got a choice of 2. Is it 10k or is it 470? So do we put this on the 20k mark and see which ones are 10? Well, we can do it like this, and oh look, that must be the 10k, but it reads 9.85, so why isn't that 10k? It can't be the right one, so it must be this one. But that only reads 0.47, so that doesn't mean it's easier to learn the colour code. I can actually tell you why it doesn't read exactly right, because nothing is ever exact. These things are not precision components, these resistors. If you want precision ones, you'll pay a lot more than the 40 or 50p that the kit will cost you for the entire thing. You can get them with very tight tolerances, but in this case you have a gold tolerance band which Means they're 5%. 5%, 10? Yeah, 5% for gold. Getting little bugs everywhere. Yellow being 4, and the purple being 7, and the brown being a 1. Now, why do we say 471? Well, it's actually 47 with 1 0. So that makes 470. So that's how you would identify that. And you can do that just from the colour code. Again, with this one, you've got your 1, your 0, so that's 10. And then you've got orange, which is 3, which is 3 zeros. So that gives you 10,000 ohms, or 10k, 10 kilo ohms. Kilo being 1,000. The same as kilobytes, kilograms, 1,000 grams in a kilo. So that's how you'd identify the resistors. So let's take those away and say, right, okay, so we know that these are this, and we know that these ones are R1 and R4, and we know that this is R2 and R3. So what else are we left with? So, okay, what else is easy to identify? Well, these actually tell you that C1 and C2, again, the C stands for capacitor. So you know it's capacitance, and you can see that in this case the value 47 microfarads, the little u means micro, which means less than a whole one, because a farad is quite a large unit. It's quite straightforward to find, because it actually is written on the side of these things 47 microfarad, so you know that that is exactly what that is, and because they're two identical ones, there's your capacitors. As I say, this isn't a video about how they work and what they do, it's just how to identify them. So that leaves us with 2 other components to identify, or 4 components, 2 of each type. Now, you've got here D1 and D2. Now, D stands for diode, and in this case, we haven't really got what looks like a diode to me, but we've got light-emitting diodes, LEDs, and they work the same as standard diodes, but they light up instead of just being black and round and, do nothing. So I thought, right, okay, these must be the LEDs. The other quick test to define the diodes from these, which are Qs. Now, why is it Q instead of T for transistor, but it's always been Q, is that these only have 2 legs on them, and the transistor has 3. Okay, transistors are the 3-legged devices. Now, on this kit, they're both identical, as you can tell by the number here, 9014 and 9014. And on here will be written, I don't know if I can see it, yes, right at the top. I don't know if I can, I'm going to go, whoa, straight in, and even there I can't get in. Let's see if I can get the focus on that. No. Oh yes, there we go. But you still can't really read the component identification, so let's go straight back out, focus in, there you go. And the transistors are identical, and you can get these again by the numbers that are written on them. And in this case, 9014 identifies the 2 transistors. So this is effectively how you'd identify the components in this particular kit. In some of the others we're done, you've got many more types of components, and some, although they're marked as C, they look different to these, and they're made in a slightly different fashion, and that's really the differences between them, how they're made, what they're made of, but they do the same job. The capacitor is there to store and release charge, the transistor is there as a switch, the LED is there to provide light, and the resistors are there to resist the flow of electricity, in this case the current. trying to keep the video simple. I'm not going to go into baffling people with Ohm's law or the different types of capacitor or the different types of diodes, whether they be or what they're made of. And again, with transistors, and I could show you half a dozen of each type, and you'd still say, well, how do I know that's what I need, and how do I know that's what I've got? And it sort of defeats the purpose of these little exercise kits that we've got here. The primary exercise for me is the soldering practice, and hopefully imparting a little bit of fun into electronics without baffling people with all the numbers that go with it. I could, but I don't really want to, because that would be like being at school, and if you're anything like me, you didn't really like school. It was one of those places you had to go, and like it or lump it, that was it. And I actually did most of my learning outside of school, which makes me sound really old, doesn't it? I can hear my daughter upstairs saying, "Oh, Dad." So anyway, there we go. Let's identify the components: resistor, capacitor, LED or diodes, and transistors. A nice straightforward little kit which gives you 2 flashing lights for very little outlay. Thanks very much for watching. If you like what I do, then please subscribe. If you don't, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Thanks very much. Goodbye.